Hello, great people. Today I woke up and the first thing I've read is that Navalny is dead. And I'm trying to live through this right now, through just to realize it. And I feel like I need to share this with you and to tell you about everything, all the details that are related to his death, which is not just natural death, it's assassination. We all understand that. It's obvious. And today I want to talk about this with you guys. It's a black day for not just Russian democracy, but for democracy all over the world, for democracy as a institute. Because I mean, Navalny for me was on the level of like Nelson Mandela. And Alexey Navalny was comparing himself to Nelson Mandela. And we know the example of Nelson Mandela, who eventually got out of prison and, was a really great leader. And Navalny was really inspired by his example, but unfortunately, this is not what happened. I'm gonna tell you about all the details I know about all the reaction of Russian propagandists on this, how they blame the West for killing Navalny. And the only proof they have is basically that the Western reaction to Navalny's death was immediate before the expertise, before the medical expertise. And this is the only argument, the only take Russian propaganda has about Navalny's death. So I'm going to read you some of those statements. I'm going to read you some of the reactions of the people in the West. How do they react to this news? When I heard about this, when I read this, I couldn't even proceed this in my head. I was like, no way. Like, no way. It's impossible. When you wake up in the morning, it's really hard to like express your emotions for some reason. I think if I would read this in the evening, I would be literally crying, but I haven't, which is, I kind of feel bad about this. A lot of my friends who are still in Russia, they've texted me about this. I've opened up my phone and I was like, oh my gosh. And a lot of them, they said they cried, but because they faced this news when it was about already 6 p.m. in Moscow. Let's see what those people say about Navalny's death. And of course, I want to start with the people who are the closest people to Alexey Navalny. His mother, Lyudmila Navalny, who actually still lives in Moscow. I remember a lot of people has been telling me that they are afraid Russian authorities can go after my parents, for example. But all this time, since Navalny was in jail and throughout his activism, throughout his opposition to Putin, his parents have been living in Moscow and they've been even running a small business, and they were not touched. So what Lyudmila Navalny, the mother of Alexei Navalny, said about his death, she said that she doesn't want to hear any condolences. She said that they, meaning she and the father of Alexei Navalny, have seen Alexei at the 12th of February, and he was looking absolutely healthy. He was not complaining about his health. He was, as we have this word, he was happy. Not happy, but he was not down emotionally. And he didn't really complain about any health issues. And she just don't understand how he could like die of natural causes, as they say. She just doesn't accept those condolences from like the Russian propaganda people. And there have been a couple of people who are part of Kremlin's machine and who were like saying condolences. And I guess her reply was to those people when she said, I don't accept any condolences. What is going to happen? I don't think anything is going to happen with the Russian society. It is so depressed. Well, majority of people do not even care, which is unfortunately the reality. They just out of politics, they just don't care. I don't think there's going to be a lot of protests. We have seen already there were a couple of like people putting flowers to memorials to commemorate the memory of Alexei Navalny, but I don't think there's going to be any protests, really. And some of those people actually have been already arrested for putting the flowers. And like there was a couple of solo picketing, like I don't know if that's the right word, solo protesting, and people were, just arrested right away. I think it was 5 or about 4 p.m. in Moscow today, 16th of February. Official website of one of this jail where Navalny was sentenced in Yamal-Nenetsky autonomous region. They've published that he died after he went for a walk. He started to feel bad, and eventually they called the medics, as they say, like they provided all the necessary medical help, but it didn't help. And eventually he died, I think 14:23 military time, 2 p.m., 43 minutes local time. So Yulia Navalnaya, the wife of Alexey Navalny, she gave a really, it's just a really sad speech, unfortunately, seeing her basically having her eyes cried out. She gave a speech about the death of her husband. So let's watch it and let's see what she has to say about this.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Наверное, вы все уже видели приходящие сегодня ужасные новости.
And you all heard about the horrific news.
Стоит ли мне выйти сюда или сразу лететь?
I thought, should I stand here before you or should I go back to my children? And then I thought, what would have Alexey done in my place? And I'm sure that he would have been standing here on this stage.
Я не знаю, верить или нет
don't
тем новостям,
know,
ужасным
should we
новостям,
believe the terrible
которые
news we get,
мы получаем
the news
только из государственных
we
источников
get
в России.
only from the
Потому что долгие
official
годы, и
media.
вы все это знаете, все это
For
знаете,
many years,
мы
and you
не
know all
можем
this,
верить Путину
we have been in this
и путинскому
situation.
правительству.
We
Они
cannot
всегда лгут.
believe Putin and his government. They are lying constantly.
Но если это правда,
But if it is
я хочу,
the
чтобы
truth,
Путин,
I would like
все его окружение,
Putin and all his
путинские
staff,
друзья,
everybody
его правительство
around him,
знали,
his government,
что
his
они
friends,
понесут
I want
за
them
то, что они
know
сделали
that
с нашей
they
страной,
will be punished for
с моей
what
семьей
they have done with our
и с моим
country,
мужем
with
ответственность.
my family
И этот день наступит
and with my
очень
husband.
скоро.
They will be brought
И
to
я хочу
justice,
призвать
and
все мировое
this
сообщество,
day will come soon.
всех
And I would
находящихся в
like
этом
to
зале,
call upon all the
людей
international
во всем мире,
community,
чтобы
all
мы
the
вместе
people in the
сплотились
world.
и
We
победили
should come
это зло,
together
победили
and we should fight against
ужасающий режим,
this evil.
который сейчас
We should fight this
в России.
horrific regime in
И
Russia
этот режим
today.
и Владимир
This
Путин
regime
должны понести
and
персональную
Vladimir
ответственность
Putin
за
should
все
be
те
personally
ужасные
held
вещи, которые они
responsible
делают
for
с
all
моей
the
страной,
atrocities
с нашей
they
страной
have
Россией в
committed
последние годы.
in
Спасибо
our
большое.
country the last years.
So that was a speech of Yulia Navalnaya, the wife of Alexey Navalny, and she said that she hopes and she wants to the whole world to be united to destroy this evil. But it's funny to me to realize so many people in the US are still thinking Putin is not evil. And Putin, you can negotiate with Putin, you can give up Ukraine, and Putin is gonna be it's gonna be enough for Putin's appetites. And see what does the Russian Z Ganidas, Ganida as we say in Russian, meaning like bastards, what do they say about Navalny's death? And firstly, we have this, Sergei Mironov was saying that the only people who profit from the death of Navalny is basically the enemies of Russia. That's what he said. And who is he, Sergei Mironov, if you're gonna ask? Well, firstly, he is a member of the Russian parliament, lower bracket of the Russian parliament, which is a state Duma. That's the name of the lower bracket of the Russian parliament. And he also is a head of the oppositionist party, Just Russia. And he is the person who is going to be an opponent of Putin in the upcoming presidential elections. And he is the person who says that the death of Alexei Navalny was only profitable for the enemies of Russia. There are so many other Z Gnida. So let's see what those Z Gnidas say about Navalny's death. A lot of them have Telegram channels where they talk their opinion, and they're actually pretty popular among Russian society. So let's read this one. One Telegram channel, one screenshot is from the guy called Poznikov, just a Z journalist. Well, here with the red letters, it's written "Likvidировано," which means basically liquidated, killed. And then it says, "I'll remind you that Navalny and his fans, his people who sympathize to him, and his channels, meaning like YouTube channels, Telegram channels, people who run those, since the start of the war, they are pro-Ukraine and against our guys, our citizens, our peaceful civilians who are being bombed by Hohol Nazis. Hohol is like a curse word to Ukrainians. Navalnisty, meaning the Navalnists, like the members of, not members, but people who are sympathize to Navalny, and other people who support him, they support the killing of Russian people. They respect the Ukrainians since the start of the special military operation. That's what this Zhignida said about. Another one, Azarionak, who is actually the main propagandist in Belarus. He's like a Solovyev of Belarus. What does he say? In Russia, presidential elections are running. Trying to destabilize the situation with Dontsovas and Nadezhdins didn't work out, meaning that Ekaterina Dontsova, who was trying to be registered as an independent presidential candidate for the Russian elections, and she was not registered because of her signatures of her supporters were fake, and there is the Central Committee of Elections that prohibited her to be registered, and the Russian propaganda was saying that she is just a puppet of the CIA. And Nadezhdin, another guy who was also trying to be registered, he was also not registered because of the Central Committee said that his signatures of his supporters were fake. And they were saying, this guy Azarionak, her surname Azarionak, he says that the destabilization of this whole situation didn't work out with Dontsovas and Nadezhdins. Also, they were not able to make people panic, Ukrainians terrorizing the civilians, and now they use their favorite method of the West, Western cherry, as he said. A sacred victim, meaning Navalny, he says the people who are least interested in this, meaning in killing of Navalny, is the political leadership of Russia. This is understandable to everyone. In Belarus, and he's from Belarus, in Belarus, before the elections in 2010, in the couple of days before the upcoming colorful revolution, one of the journalists, Bibenin, who also mysteriously died, but it didn't work out for the West. So basically, there was this journalist, Bibenin. I actually don't really know much about him, but he says that this journalist, who everybody would have forgot, he was killed mysteriously by someone, meaning like CIA, and it didn't work out for, the revolution. The CIA was not able to achieve anything with this. So basically, here he's comparing the death of a Belarusian journalist as a sacrifice of the America to destabilize the situation, and he's saying that the death of Navalny is the same, basically. Let's see what others have to say. Karnaukhov, another Zhignida, he says Navalny is dead. In his life, he only created hell, and that's where he was pulling his whole country. He was a traitor. He hated Russia. He hated the history of our people. In one word, he was a bastard. But God is his judge. And also he said that we do not commemorate devils, comparing Navalny to a devil. Another Zhignida, Tapas, I don't even know who that guy is, but he's pretty famous. He says, if you have any proofs that Navalny was killed not by me, then I ask you not to make any statements that will prove as an argument that I am not at fault. So basically he's killing, if you don't have any proofs that it was not me who killed Navalny, you can say it's me who killed Navalny because I would kill him. That's what he says. So yeah, all those Z freaking Gnidas are just enjoying the death of Navalny. You can see the real nature of those people. Human life for them is just nothing. Like the death of so many Ukrainians, of so many Ukrainian soldiers, civilians, so many Russians, it's nothing for them. They don't care about people. Those are not people who care for one single value, which is a human life, one of the most important values in this world. They don't care for that. They are ready to kill anyone who just criticizes them. They use people as cannon fodder. I'm continuing to tell you about the other reaction of Z people on the death of Navalny. This one is special. Vyacheslav Volodin, who is the speaker of the Russian parliament. So basically the main guy in the Russian parliament, in the lower bracket of the Russian parliament, which is the State Duma. He wrote in his Telegram channel, in the death of Navalny, people from Washington and Brussels are so basically people from Washington and Brussels are involved and they are to blame for the death of Navalny. Well, this is literally going to be the only take of the Russian propaganda. It's all the CIA from Washington, D.C., it's all the European Union who are to blame for the death of Navalny. He said the reason of his death is going to be stated by medical expertise. However, before waiting for the results, they, meaning the West, are blaming us and blaming like copy-pasting, and they are making those political statements, politicians making those statements, and the heads of unfriendly countries before they ask themselves a question. Who is profitable in the death of Navalny? And if you ask me this question, I will tell you it's one person, Vladimir fucking Putin. I'm sorry for the F word, but I cannot just say it in a different way. Vyacheslav Volodin says that it's not the Putin who is profitable of death of Navalny. No, it's the West, it's the Washington D.C. and it's Brussels, which is the basically European Union. And here he says it's absolutely clear that it is profitable for those who put more than 19,000 of sanctions against Russia, trying to destroy a Russian economy. It's those who are losing the war in Ukraine. It's those who doesn't support their own citizens and doesn't have chances to win elections, but still wants to stay at power. It's those who wants to capture our golden resources of our country. It's those who want to destroy Russia and who are doing everything to stop our developing. All of them, the surnames of which we all know, from the General Secretary of NATO, the heads of USA, to Scholz, Sunak, and Zelensky. Those are the people to blame for the death of Navalny. Exactly them who made those, like a lot of wrong decisions, and those who are trying to stay in power for as much as possible, they are the one who are profitable from Navalny's death. I'm just amazed Navalny survived this long. To be honest, I agree. I agree with this, John. The sheer psychological torture this man had to endure was monstrous in its brutality. And I exactly agree with you, because out of 3 years he was spent in jail, 1 year he was put in a so-called shizo. Shizo is basically a solo cell with like no beds. It's just literally pure floor, and you are isolated out there. And it's basically a punishment if you have done something wrong, being in a prison. And Navalny was put in shizo, as far as I remember, for 26 times, not 26 days, 26 times in 3 years. And eventually he spent 1 year in shizo in total, out of 3 years of his whole sentence he's been serving in a jail. I mean, even being in these conditions, laying down on the cold floor for a year, it can kind of kill you. But I still do not believe that he just died like this. People do not die in 1 day like this from natural causes. Like, you feel this, you complain about this. He did not complain about this. 1 day before yesterday, there was a court, and in this court, he was actually looking pretty, I mean, it was online court, so he was in his cell, and through webcam, they were basically translating the video to a court. And from what we've seen on the video, he looks pretty happy. He was even joking about with the judges. Well, he's joking that he says to the judge that, please, respected judge, I'm running out of my money in the jail. So, you are with your crazy salary as a federal judge doing all this fake job. You definitely receive a lot of money. So can you please, send me some, and laughing about it. So basically, he's laughing. The judge himself, who's looked like a 20 freaking years old teenage, he's laughing himself. And it's not the face of a person who looks like dying from natural causes. It's a face of a person who did not give up. Every time Navalny was in jail, every time he would go in public, meaning he would be, the only way for him to go in public is to say something in a court, and one of the lawyers who are in the court, they would record the video from his cell. This is the only place where they could record his statements, his words. And he was always giving really brave and positive. Now let's continue with people starting to bring in flowers to the memorials of political prisoners. And there are memorials in Moscow. And here there is a couple of videos from Moscow of people bringing flowers. Of course, it's snowing. It's February in Moscow. It's pretty cold. People bringing flowers to the Solovetsky Kamen, which is one of the memorial for the political prisoners in the USSR. And you see that there are already like a pile of flowers. And this video was filmed like 1 hour later, once it was started to be known to the public. And we see that, you know, there are just a couple of people just passing by, putting a flower by flower, and right by the stone, there are 4 policemen just standing and making sure nobody is gonna gather around. Somebody is trying to put the candles on fire at one of the memorials. To be honest, I don't know what memorial is this, but as I can see, it is by those signs, I can tell that this is the building of some kind of police. Maybe that's like the headquarters of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, which basically police. Maybe that's by them, but I don't really know what is this monument. I remember this dog, but I don't really remember exactly. But there are more recent videos from Moscow where people are starting to be getting arrested for putting flowers, and it's already kind of later in Moscow because we can see that it is darker, the sky is darker, and the police gather around places where people trying to put flowers and to commemorate the death of Alexey Navalny somehow, and police is always there. He says, "Respected citizens, please go. There is going to be no event here," meaning that, you know, you basically prohibited to gather around. "Go back home," he says. And the lady in the back screams, "We didn't came for any freaking event." Yeah, there's about like 50 people. Wait, what does it say? They ask, like, is it prohibited for us just to bring just to put flowers? And they say, we don't violate the law. Why did you came here, police? And he just repeats what he said. Somebody's getting arrested. Looks like a lady by 2 huge policemen. And as far as I remember, this is a monument in Moscow related to Sakharov's memory. Sakharov is one of the most famous, the prize winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, as far as I remember. Sakharov is one of the most famous political activists and like human rights activists of the late USSR. He has like a memorial in Moscow, which was established there before Putin came to power. And Putin just cannot just torn it down. So there is another video of people being arrested. Oh, so the police just says, like, the lady here, she has flowers in her hand. Let me turn off the... So basically, they are arguing, the lady says that I just came to put the flowers, and the policemen say, how do I know you only came to put the flowers? There is a lot of people, maybe you came for some kind of protest, which is prohibited, that's what he says. He says, can I just go by myself to the monument and put my flowers? Alone, not with people, but alone. And he says, no, you cannot. And they just say, please go back, go away. Nothing's gonna happen today here. Says like same thing. Dear citizens, please go away. And here one of the, I think this is the only solo protest I have seen so far in Moscow, and it says Alexey Navalny is killed and his blood is going to be on your hands, Vova. Vova is a informal version of the name Vladimir, meaning Vladimir Putin. And of course there are two policemen already. From the government workers and the workers of the governmental medias, they were asked not to publish or really limit the amount of publications about the death of Alexey Navalny. And also they were asked not to republish the words of people about the death of Navalny. So let's say if somebody in the West said something about the death of Navalny, they are being asked not to share this. The father of Navalny, Anatoly Navalny, he confirmed the death of his son, and a lot of politicians and a lot of heads of different countries all over the world, they started to say their condolences to the family of Navalny and to the people, democratic people of Russia. For example, the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, he says that Alexei, we will not forget you, we will never forget them, meaning those who killed you. Robert Metsola, the president of European Parliament, he said that the world has lost a warrior whose bravery is gonna echo through generations. Russia has taken his freedom, his life, but not his dignity. His fight for democracy is continuing, and our thoughts are with his children and his wife. Surprisingly, and Salome Zurabashvili, who is the president of Georgia, but as we I guess a lot of you heard that Alexei Navalny back in 2008 when Russia invaded Georgia, he called Georgians as like rats, and a lot of Georgians they don't like Alexei Navalny for this, which is quite justified, I think. President of Georgia, Salome Zurabashvili, she still said that the death of Alexei Navalny is a tragedy for all the Democrats and human rights defenders. My condolences to his family and those who are still continue to fight for democracy in Russia. The head of the Foreign Affairs Agency in France, Stéphane Séjourné, said that Navalny paid his life to fight the system of oppression. The head of the Foreign Affairs of Czech Republic, Jan Lipovsky, he said that as Russia is dealing with its foreign policies the same way it's dealing with its citizens. Russia has turned into a cruel country that is killing people who are dreaming of a better future. As Boris Nemtsov, as Navalny nowadays, he's in jail and he was killed, he was tortured to death just because he was opposing Putin. And Boris Nemtsov is another prominent leader of the Russian opposition who was killed in 2015. He was shot 3 times right by the Kremlin, not far from Kremlin. And here nowadays Navalny is dead. So really though, there is not many famous oppositionists who could take main role in the oppositionist movement. There is literally not a lot of people. I cannot think of a lot of people. Another video from the city of Kazan, Republic of Tatarstan, where people are forbidden to put flowers to the memorial because of Alexei Navalny's death. Police. Yeah, they just try not to push them really hard, but just like, get away, get away. So many police. Wow. It's more police than people who actually bring flowers. It's crazy. Who will take Navalny's place now that he's gone? And that's what I just said. I don't really see a lot of leaders who can take Navalny's position. Okay, let me give you my list of people who can take Navalny's position as the main oppositionist of Russia. First one, Ilya Yashin, big friend of Navalny, who is also in jail. He was one of the deputies of local counties in Moscow. He's a great guy overall. Young, relatively young, smart. He doesn't have as many fuck-ups as Navalny had with playing with nationalists and conservatives at the start of his political path. So Ilya Yashin is my favorite among all of them. Maxim Katz, I guess. I'm not a fan, but he may be a good person, and he is really famous right now in the Russian opposition. Also, another person here, Mikhail Khodorkovsky, who actually have been pretty famous oppositionists of Vladimir Putin. Mikhail Khodorkovsky. one of the ex-oligarchs of Russia who has been living in UK for about how many years already? 15, I guess, maybe less, maybe like 12. He's really prominent, super smart, but there is also a lot of questions for Mikhail Khodorkovsky from a lot of oppositionists and a lot of people who share the democratic views. In Armenia, in Yerevan, were a lot of Russians, anti-war Russians who came there. There is a big protest against Putin during this evening because of Navalny's death. Somebody just screamed in the crowd that Simonyan, who is an Armenian journalist working for the Russian propaganda, one of the most famous, they screamed, well, I'm sorry for the curse word, but if you want to see, if I'm saying here, if I'm translating what they say, basically he said that Simonyan is a whore and she's Armenian, but living in Russia. And everybody started to like... And people scream, Navalny, Navalny, and also here on the posters I can tell it says ubийцы, which means killers. And there are a lot of protests all over the world, and they're gonna take place in a lot of places. I guess this one is from Armenia again. This one, I would guess it's also from Armenia. Killers, you and your children are next. That's what they say. Here in Belgrade, Serbia, which is quite known for loving Putin and supporting Russia against the war in Ukraine. Russians who came to Serbia, they came out to the embassy of Russia in Belgrade and started to show them the middle finger and scream that Putin is huilo, which is hopefully doesn't need an explanation, but it's basically a curse to Putin, the most famous curse. Putin huilo! Putin huilo! Germany, Haag. Is it Haag? I don't really know what does it mean in German. When will Russia be free? I don't know. To be honest, I've lost my hopes. I don't know. I'm just losing my hopes every day. And remember, I was showing you the protest in Yerevan, Armenia, and one of the protesters basically cursed at the Margarita Simonyan. She's actually the head of Russia today, if you're curious. So she said that there was no point for the Russian authorities to kill Alexey Navalny, especially before the elections. That's what she says. And it was her reply to Stoltenberg's comment that Russia has to answer questions about the death of Alexey Navalny. And then she said Russia doesn't owe anyone anything. No explanations needed. That's what she says. Anton Krasovsky, who is also a really famous propagandist in Russia, he also blamed Americans for the death of Navalny. He says that Alexey Navalny was killed to balance out the consequences of the interview of Putin to Tucker Carlson. The person whose reaction was really surprising to me, and I'm pretty sure you all know Edward Snowden, the guy who leaked a lot of American secrets. I didn't really know much about Edward Snowden, to be honest, because I was kind of young when this whole thing happened. I was like 14 or 13, I think. I know that he's taking a refuge in Russia for whatever he did. And what he says, it was just freaking pointless. His assassination. And this is the only thing he said. Yeah, it is pointless to kill people who want better future for their own country. A really interesting media called Verska. It's a Russian-speaking media. They mentioned a lot of interesting details about this colony. So it is located in the village of Harp in Yamal-Nenetsky Autonomous Region, and it's located 60 kilometers to the north from the polar circle. A lot of prisoners from this jail complaining about the lack of clothes, just overall lack of things for life in this colony. And we know this because there were a couple of criminal cases opened by the ex-prisoners against this colony. For example, people from 2017 and 2020, they were complaining about the lack of winter clothing. For example, one guy was given only one winter boots for the whole year. They were not new, they were like worn by some other jail guy, and that he was always sick because of this. A lot of them also say that a lot of the prisoners over there had a lot of psychological stress because of the conditions. For example, one guy, he was complaining that in one of the cells where he was stored, there was no natural light. So there was no light at all, and there was no hot water. And he actually won in a court against this jail. He won like 25,000 rubles, which is about $300 as a compensation from jail. And even like the government, they have, during one of the checks of this jail, they found some of the violations about just norms of keeping prisoners in jail. And those violations were quite common and they were happening quite often. So basically, this jail was not heaven on earth. Hopefully you understand that. How did Navalny die? We don't know yet. There is no official information about this yet. There are rumors. One of the rumors say that one of the arteries that come to his heart just dismembered. So basically heart problems. But this is only a rumor. And we are never really gonna know the reality because nobody except the Russian government has the access to his body. And do you trust the Russian government and whatever they say? I don't. So Putin was, I think, in Chelyabinsk, or where exactly? Let me see. Somewhere in one of those industrial cities. He was doing this scheduled event with the workers of some manufacturer, and he was literally in live when Navalny died. None of the workers did not ask any questions about Putin, about Navalny's death. And nobody were allowed to, because on all of those events, usually the questions you ask are planned and filtered, and you cannot ask questions which are not planned before. So Putin will not have an answer and will look stupid. After the conference Putin had in one of those manufacturing like factories basically, journalists, once Putin would leave in the building, they were trying to ask him about the death of Navalny, but he didn't come to them, he just went away. And Dmitry Peskov, his press secretary, came up to them and gave this comment.
Насколько мы знаем, сейчас в соответствии со всеми действующими правилами, всем занимаются всеми проверками, выяснением
as we know, right now, the police is doing an investigation.
И так далее. То есть это уже каких-то не требуется поручений, потому что на этот счет есть определенный свод правил, которыми сейчас всем руководствуются.
So basically, he just says in a really smart way that there is a list of rules we follow, a procedure, and the procedure is being run. So we are waiting to the results. The journalist asking, do we know it was a blood clot or something? He said, I don't know. I don't know. The medics should say this. And this guy is like, who is in charge? Who is supposed to ask, like, to tell this? And he says the medics from Moscow. So they're gonna send medics from Moscow 3,000 miles away, so they would tell the reason for Navalny's death. Also, the Moscow's police made an announcement that all the meetings, all the protests, all the rallies around the death of Alexey Navalny are prohibited and are gonna be punished according to misdemeanor codex of Russia. More videos of people being arrested at the Solovetsky Stone in Moscow. Fucking 5 policemen and 1 guy. Emmanuel Macron wrote in a Russian language in his Twitter account, X account, my bad, surprisingly, that in modern Russia, people with 3 minds are being sent to gulags and being sentenced to death. I feel anger and I'm confused. I will keep the memory of Alexey Navalny, his bravery and his memory. My thoughts are with his families, his friends, and with Russian people. But so far, yeah, this is it for today. I don't even know what to say about Alexey Navalny's death. It is a black day of Russian history, for sure. Russian modern history. I really have no hopes for Russia anymore. It's kind of like it's a lost cause. But I'm gonna continue run this channel to spread the reality and the truth about what's going on in Russia. So thank you so much for just being here with me today. Thank you for all your words of condolences. Thank you for being on the bright side of, thank you so much for all the support. Rest in peace, Alexey Navalny. He was a real patriot of Russia in a good sense of it.